Hi, and welcome to this edition of the Bobcat Buzz podcast, where we talk about the buzz at Frontier Community College. I'm Derek Dunn, your host, and we thank you for watching and or listening to the podcast. The podcast is uploaded and archived through the Frontier Community College Facebook page and on the Frontier Community College YouTube channel. I want to say a collective thank you to those who enjoyed last month's podcast I did with Nixie, as we received great feedback regarding it. My guest for the March edition of the Bobcat Buzz podcast is Brent Maguire. And Brent is the Program Director of Emergency Preparedness here at FCC. I've known Brent for years, since my grade school days at Center Street in Fairfield, when he was the DARE officer during his days at the Fairfield Police Department. Now, we like to mention also over the course of the podcast, you'll see some pictures, videos as well. So thanks for joining me here, Brent.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you were a DARE officer, because I was in grade school from about 1999 to about 2003. And I remember sixth grade, I think, is when I think I had DARE for the first time, I think.
Yeah, we went, back then, we went into sixth grade. I think it's changed since then. Maybe they do fifth grade now, because It seems like kids are exposed to things at a younger age now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started with the department in 1997, was juvenile officer, became DARE officer, and I did it till about 2003, 2004, until I moved into the detective position. And then Charlie took over.
And I bet you enjoy being the DARE officer, getting to see the kids and going to the schools.
Oh yeah, that was one of the best things about it, because sometimes as a police officer, you don't always get to see the upside with people. So it's great to be in the school and be around kids and just to feel the energy and you feel like you're making a difference.
All right. Well, again, you also sent some photos as well before this podcast began. So over the course of time, again, you'll be seeing some photos here. So you've been the program director of the Emergency Preparedness Program at Frontier Community College since last year. And what is the Emergency Preparedness Program? What degrees, certificates, courses does the program entail?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, I mean, we basically help prepare people for various emergencies, like how to get prepared for it and how should they respond to it. And so basically 4 areas that we cover. The first one, and probably the most involved that we are, is with CPR. We provide CPR for the lay person. So, that way you know how to perform, CPR on an adult, child, infant, how to use an AED, and some basic first aid skills. And then we also have a kind of more advanced that we use for people that are in the medical field. And it's what we call a basic life support or BLS provider training. And so it focuses more on working as a team and doing other things with the airway that you might not do as a lay person like you and I would do. Yeah. And so that's one component. Then we also have fire science. And so in fire science, you can actually get an associate's degree in fire science, but we also have a couple other certificates, I think 3 certificates actually, that you can get. Then we have our EMS side. We used to have a paramedicine program. We do not right now, but we are in the midst of trying to bring that back. So you have to go through an accreditation process for that. If we get the paramedicine program back, that would be an associate's degree in that. Okay. But currently we have an EMT certificate, so you could be a basic EMT. And then we, a level below that kind of is a first responder, emergency medical responder. And so a lot of fire departments, especially in rural areas, are starting to go to that because they're often the first ones to respond to an emergency before ambulance is there. And so it provides basic skills there. And then the last component, which has kind of been absent for a number of years, is the law enforcement component. Now, while we already have an administration of justice program at Albany Central, what we're talking about is professional development and ongoing training for those who are already police officers. Okay, yeah. So we're wanting to do like a prep class that might help local police departments to increase the number of qualified and able people to be hired, and to say, hey, here's kind of the process that it takes from application to physical test to written test. We'd like to do partner with the mobile training unit that police departments already use for training, try to offer some more in district instead of having to travel so far away. So that's kind of everything kind of wrapped up together. Yeah.
When you first stepped into the role as the program director, what were some of the challenges that you faced, and also the progress that you've made so far?
Well, a lot of the challenges that I faced are probably like most people. It's the processes that were in place, and looking at them and saying, okay, are these good processes, or are they getting in the way of some things? And so we found, yes, some of the processes were getting in the way of us being efficient. So for example, with CPR,
Yes.
We were not meeting the AHA guidelines for how quickly we should be issuing cards. They say from the date the class is held, 20 business days later, that card should be in the hand of that person who took the class. Well, we were not meeting that. So we changed some processes, and now we are well within the 20 business days. We try to be within 2 weeks of that class, just so that people aren't having to wait for that, because we want to be about good customer service, and we weren't doing that before. So we changed that process. We also, I mentioned the EMT side. So right now, we tried to have an EMT class here. We didn't have enough numbers, but we did have enough for a class in Newton. And then we also had a delayed start class in Mount Carmel that started at the beginning of this month. But in the past, what had happened is there's this orientation that people were required to come to, and they had to come to our campus, even if the class was held in Newton or Mount Carmel.
Right,
so what we did is say, that's not convenient for our students to have to travel this far. So we had an orientation in Newton, at Robinson for the Newton class. So they didn't have to travel as far.
Right.
And then we even, for the Mount Carmel class, since it was a little different and we were more flexible, we didn't even have an orientation. We just kind of sent out the information to the students, and then I met with them at the beginning session to do that. So we're just, I guess, trying to be, again, more attentive to the needs of the students and say, well, rather than have to drive 45 minutes, an hour, hour and a half to Fairfield, let's go to them and try to do that.
Yeah, close in proximity. So we're talking about CPR here, and when this story hit a national scale here, but back on January 2nd, Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin suffered cardiac arrest after making a tackle. Really, a lot of people saw the replay like I did. Team trainers and paramedics rushed to him to perform CPR, use the AED and other treatments. He was given oxygen and an IV. His heartbeat was restored on the field thanks to the fast and quick response of the team trainers and paramedics. And in fact, during the Super Bowl, they actually had a camera shot of him at the game. I remember watching the Super Bowl and seeing him there, which was, I thought, great. But in your eyes, and I noticed this on social media locally as well as abroad, do you think it helped raise awareness? For those who don't know how to do CPR, those who don't know how to use an AED, maybe there's maybe someone had took a CPR class in the past, and maybe there's things that they've forgotten. Do you think it raised awareness for that?
I hope so. I want to believe so. I think people fail to realize is that people like you and I who are trained in CPR and AED have a much greater chance of helping that person survive than emergency responders. And the reason for that is while emergency responders are trained at a higher level than us, the response time is not as quick because they're not normally right there. You and I are right there. And so the more people that are trained in CPR and where's the AED and how to do this, the more likely it is that you're going to be able to save someone, such as this case right here. And so I hope people realize that, I can make a difference. That's what we want people to know. I can make a difference. Because I can't remember the exact statistics, but I know that emergency responders, their chance of saving someone in that situation is it's like a 10 to 15%. But then you talk about you and I that's trained, it jumps to like 30 or 40%. So you're talking 2 to 3 times likelihood, that you're increasing that someone survives that incident. That's why everybody needs to be trained. And
it's so weird. You mentioned about the stats. I was looking up some stats before you came in here regarding CPR. The American Heart Association estimates that 100,000 to 200,000 lives of adults and children could be saved each year if CPR were performed early enough. To act quickly is key because every second, every minute matters.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, and again, because we're there, but for like the EMTs who have to hop on the ambulance and get over there, that takes time. But since we're right there on the scene, again, it's about acting quickly and use what you know to your advantage.
And that's the thing. I think sometimes, and the AHA's kind of changed their standards now. I know some people are like, well, I don't want to have to breathe in a person's mouth. You don't have to. There's hands only, right? Just do chest compressions. Even that has been shown to be able to keep that person going long enough for emergency responders to get there and then take over and do more.
And also, CPR can be successful in most cases, doubling or tripling the chances of survival when performed early enough after a cardiac arrest.
Right.
So that's why I say seconds, minutes matter. It's just like you and I watch sports. It's like basketball. It's like football. But the game is so tight, it's so close, and we're toward the end of the game. Every second, every minute matters.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right.
It's kind of like that a little bit.
Absolutely is.
All right, so also another reason why I brought you in here is because I saw some photos that were posted. It was on the IECC Business and Industry Facebook page about the advanced technician firefighter having classes at the Live Burn Center.
Yeah.
So what is the Live Burn Center? How is it being utilized?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate to have it right here on campus. It's directly north of the EP building. So it's the northernmost part of our campus, and you'll see it's just like old cargo, containers. They call them fire cans, but it allows us to take the classroom portion and then put it into practice. So in all of our classes, they're teaching the firefighters the different skills and techniques that you need to use, but then they also get the chance to practice those in real life. And that's what our Live Burn Center does, is allows them to set a fire, have that smoke build up in there and that heat build up in there, and then them go in there and then see how they respond to that, and how do they do different, how do they rescue people out of there? How do they proceed throughout that? And so we're very fortunate to have one here. We also, Olney Fire Department is a partner of ours, and so right now we have the advanced class here. We have a class in Louisville through North Clay Fire Department. We have a class in Olney through the Olney Fire Department. We have a class in Allendale through their fire department. Olney is another place that has a burn center as well. And I think some of the pictures that I sent you are of that. I went to training there in the fall, and that was really neat because I was able to get in there and see how the fire just, when it runs up a wall and then on the ceiling, how it just rolls over there. Yeah. And so this class that I went to in the fall in Olney was what we call Mod A, which is kind of the first basic firefighter class they take. So you had firefighters that hadn't ever been in a fire and felt the heat. And so this was one of the ways for them to find out, okay, can I do this or can I not do this? So it's really neat to kind of to see that experience.
So you were a fireman, Brent?
Well, I didn't get in there. I stayed outside, and they were nice enough to bring me close enough to get pictures when it was safe to do so. I would love to try it sometime.
Yeah, put on the gear and just...
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can do anything, Brent.
Well, I don't know about that, but...
but anyway, but also, too, we talk about a little bit about the CPR and everything earlier. When it comes to a fire, an actual fire like in your home or business, wherever it may be, always good to have a fire safety plan in place.
Absolutely. Yeah, you need to know where do you go in the case of fire? What's your escape route? What happens if one of the ways that you think you're going to get out is blocked, right? You think, well, I'll just go out the door, right? Not if the fire is right there by that door or something has collapsed. So yeah, it's good to practice that. In fact, my wife is really good about that. For years, we've had this. I don't know, probably when Jacob, our youngest, was in, I don't know what grade, they did it for school. Yeah. And we ended up doing one, and it's been on our fridge for all these years. This is what happens, and this is the meeting point when we get out. Yeah. So anyway.
If you have not done this, folks, if you've not come up with a fire safety plan, please do. I tell you what, it will really help you out. So you worked several years in law enforcement. We talked about, as a DARE officer, Fairfield Police Department. How has that experience helped you? Being being as you lead the emergency preparedness program here at FCC?
Well, I think So I did for about 15 years. I started in Albion for a year, and then came over here and was here for about 14. And I think just the fact that I worked alongside firefighters, EMTs, paramedics. Again, not that I'm an expert. I'm not a firefighter. I'm not an EMT or paramedic, but I worked with them for years. And so, I understand, what their roles are in that and how that complements or works together well with law enforcement. It also allowed me to establish some good connections and contacts with people, that are related to that field that I can then say, hey, you do this for a living and have done it for 20 years. help me understand this so that we can make our program better and we can attend to the needs of our students.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is there anything else you want to mention about the emergency preparedness program, Brent?
Yeah, I think we were a part of the program showcase this year. I think maybe for the first time EP was ever part of that. And I was talking to young people in high school, and they were saying, "Well, I don't want to be a full-time firefighter. I don't want to be a paramedic." And I think sometimes people have this misconception that they can only do that as a full-time job. And most firefighters are not full-time firefighters. You have many people who are EMTs that it's a part-time thing. In other words, they have another career that they have chosen to do, but they also care about their community and they know the importance of having emergency services. And so I just would really want to encourage people to think about, hey, if that's something I'm interested in, it doesn't have to be a career, but it could be something that I get more training in, and I could do that to give back to my community and to make a difference. Because the thing is, most of us don't think about those people, right? Mm-hmm. Until we need them. Until you need them. Until you call 911. And then we want them to be the very best of the best, right? And to give their very all if it's affecting us or loved ones. But we don't often think, about the day-to-day stuff that they're doing to help keep us safe. And that's what IECC's Emergency Preparedness Program does is gives people not just the head knowledge, the classroom foundation, but we provide the hands-on skills for the people to be able to make a difference in their community. That's what I like about the technical programs that we have out here. You look at the auto lab with Rodney Maxey. You look at you guys with a hands-on learning, which is the way to go. That's how I learned how to do broadcasting in general, was hands-on learning. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a lot of value in that. Not knocking anything else. Yeah. Right. But I think that technical aspect, especially with what we're talking about, we don't want our EMTs, firefighters, police officers just having book knowledge, right, or head knowledge. We want them to have been tested in practicing those skills, and that's exactly what our program does. Yeah. So if someone would like to know more about the emergency preparedness program here at FCC, maybe there's even a business, an organization, a church that may be interested in having a CPR class. Yeah. Never a bad idea for that. No. How can they get a hold of you? Yeah, so they can visit the website, iecc.edu, and they can find us under business and industry. And but they can also just call our office directly. My number is 618-847-9163. That's my direct line. And if I don't answer, usually my administrative assistant Ellen it will answer, and we can meet those needs. Well, I'll tell you what, again, Brent, thanks for hopping on board here with the Bobcat Buzz podcast. Great to have you here. And thanks for talking about emergency preparedness today. I thought we covered a lot of ground, and I know there's obviously more ground to cover a little bit, but at least we were able to get the word out about the program and what you guys do, and we thank you for what you guys do. Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. All right, well, thanks. I'm Derek Dunn again, and thanks for joining us on the Bobcat Buzz podcast. Always a pleasure. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.